Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Some of you may know that while I love Team Fortress, I'm also a big Call of Duty fan, specifically Call of Duty Zombies. While I don't post Call of Duty content anymore, and haven't for some time, I still watch COD content on my own time once in a while, and play zombies from time to time. I bring this up because I was watching a video that gave me an idea. If I can find the video, I will, and I'll put like a little screenshot. But basically what this guy did is he ranked every single starter room pistol from worst to best. So that got me thinking, what if I did something sort of similar? Of course, TF2 and Call of Duty Black Ops zombies are pretty different, so I'm gonna have to get a bit creative, and it's more just taking inspiration than just outright copying. And that's when it hit me. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do something that I don't think anybody else has done to my knowledge within the TF2 sphere, is I'm gonna rank every single TF2 stock weapon. But instead of looking at them in reference to their class or squad, or how well they combo with other weapons, I'm going to rank them at face value. It will be a ranking of the weapons and trying to figure out which is the best and which is the worst in a vacuum. What weapons would I want if I was allowed to choose any of them? Some ground rules first. Like I said, we're looking at the guns themselves, not the classes they are on. With the exception of the bat, wrench, and spy knife, since they all have unique functions, I will combine soldier, pyro, demoman, heavy, soldier, and medics melee into one melee, just titled melee. Engineer and scout's pistol, or the 4 classes shotguns, will be combined as well. But of course the scattergun does work differently, so it will be separate. We will not go over the different versions of the stock shotguns, so we're not going to go over the slight differences between engineer shotgun and pyro shotgun. If you didn't know, the classes actually do have different reload speeds. Technically, I believe it's engineer and heavy have the fastest and pyro and soldier have slower. I could be wrong. I will put a little screenshot on screen. And for the pistols specifically, since they have different ammo counts, I will be looking at both and kind of taking them both into account to make one ranking. I'm not going to rank them separately. All said and done, let's start off with the last place weapon. The one I would least want to use. What would it be? In our last spot for today, the weapon I would least want to use, it's the sapper.
I murdered your toys as well.
This one really shouldn't be a surprise. It's an extra tool more than an actual weapon. It counters one class, can be easily removed by both the engineer and even pyro. It doesn't damage anything else. It's pretty subpar in an MVM. I mean, spy as a whole is. So the sapper just doesn't hold up on its own. It is outclassed by every other weapon, every other stock weapon at least. But that's fine, it does its job as it was intended, and it does it well enough. It's just that if I was allowed to bring any other weapon to a fight, the sapper would not be that weapon. Doesn't mean tools are useless though, and we'll get into that. The sapper does what it needs to do. It's pretty good, but it is the least useful of the weapons. It just is. If you remove the sapper, not too much changes, to be honest. I mean, it would suck, but not too much changes. Not much more to say. Keeping it brief, and moving along onto the number 19 spot. For the number 19 spot, we have our first real weapon that's used for killing enemy gamers, that being the stock bat.
Say goodbye to your kneecaps, chucklehead!
The bat is... it's a bat. It's pretty self-explanatory. You know, you hit people with it. The bat is simply just underwhelming. It only does 35 damage, and while it has a fast swing speed, 70 damage per second if you can land 2 perfect consecutive hits is really not all that good. Melees are really good because they do a high amount of burst damage, but the bat, not really. It's not that great. It does the job of a melee, being a last resort, and with scout specifically into speed, it can be moderately effective. But as a general killing tool, there are way better options than this hunk of junk aluminum bat. Just leave it on the field. Don't try to hit people over the head with it. That's all for the bat. Not really much else to say. It's okay. You know, you can kill with it, and I'd rather have it than not, assuming there's no other option, but it's just not the best option. Let's continue to climb the list, reaching our number 18 spot. At the number 18 spot, unfortunately, we have another spy weapon. That being the Disguise Kit.
Peekaboo! Sorry to pop in unannounced.
Okay, here's the thing. The Disguise Kit can either be really good or kind of bad. While the Disguise Kit has its use, it's pretty much never an item I'm going to take over anything else. The Disguise Kit is good at long distances or when an enemy glances at you from afar. I mean, let's say you're on the red teams, you see a red scout, soldier, pyro demo, whatever, walking into the base, you're not really going to think much. You see red, you recognize red, or you recognize blue, and you look away because you're like, oh, that's my teammate. And you'll go back to focusing on whatever your main target was. However, the issue comes in when you're directly engaged with an enemy. Spy checking is pretty much a no-brainer, and you're cut out the majority of the time. Also, if your acting isn't the best, which only matters sometimes, then you're even worse off. Sometimes, yeah, you can trick your enemy, but a lot of times that's not really going to do anything, especially against a competent player. It has more use than the Sapper and Stock Bat, in my opinion, but in general, it's not going to be anything more than a helpful tool that possibly could make the enemy have to rethink for a second, or like have to be like, wait, is this a spy? You know, it's not that great. It's just okay. And that can help, but it's not going to do much more than that. 17 of the weapons that come after this one are going to do better. Disguise Kit, like the Sapper, is good at what it does and it serves its purpose. It's just not a top pick. Moving on to the number 17 spot. What do we have here? Our first actual gun? Yep, the pistol.
Woo-wee! Will you look at that?
Eat my dust!
Don't get me wrong, the pistol is a solid weapon. It's great for finishing enemies off as both Scout and Engineer, and it's a great suppression tool as Engie. I guess it is for Scout as well, but Engineer, he has more ammo in reserve, so it's a little bit easier to use it like that. But it's just a great pressure tool in general. It allows the Scouts to at least have some sort of consistent damage against buildings without needing to be directly engaged, so he can kind of sit back and shoot at it. I mean, there's the shortstop too, but, this allows him to at least do something to the buildings from a distance. The problem I have with the pistol more than anything is the spread when you hold it down. I have been, on multiple occasions, maybe 10 feet away from a player, aimed at center mass, emptied my entire magazine, and only hit like 3 of the 12 rounds I fired. Of course, you can tap fire, but that's just far less effective, and the spread can just be insane on this weapon. And as well, if you're playing Scout, ammo can be scarce sometimes. But that's really only if you're actively using the pistol and you're not running away to get some ammo, and there's ammo kits littered all around, so it's not a big issue. On Engie, it's legitimately a nothing burger. When have you ever fired 212 rounds in a row, legitimately not messing around, and didn't manage to find an ammo pack or walk to your or another player's dispenser? Pretty much never, I can guess. The pistol is simply held back by the fact that it's a secondary. As a secondary, it's fine, but since we're ranking this weapon amongst every other weapon, it's going to find itself on the much lower end. Still not terrible, just nowhere near the top choice of weaponry. Does what it needs to do. Just like pretty much every weapon below this, and for the few weapons above it, it's just, it's beat out because it's just a dinky little pistol. Anyway, at least it can do some range damage. Moving along. Alright, here we go. Some may disagree with the placement of this weapon, or rather weapons. That probably gave it away. It was close, but I'm going to go with the stock melee weapons. The shovel, fire axe, bottle, fist, kukri, and bone saw, while not all necessarily best in slot, are very reliable and do what they need to do. Even the bone saw and fire axe, which often get crap for not being best and being outclassed by other weapons in the respective classes' melee slots, they still do what they need to do, dealing a solid 65 damage every 0.8 seconds. Enough to 2-hit 4 out of the 9 classes, 3-hit 3 more of the classes, and then, good luck on Soldier and Heavy without a random crit, but hey, they still do the job. Dealing high burst damage, and while I'm not really considering it, the random crit chance is far higher, which helps immensely, especially as Devilman or Medic, who can build up damage much easier. If you didn't know, which I think most of you know by now, but the more damage you do in a short amount of time increases your random crit chance. So actually, random crits aren't super random technically, as you can increase your crit chance. Kind of weird. And Medic's indirect because his healing target counts towards the damage he dealt. We're getting into the nitty-gritty. We don't really need to go that far anyway. They're obviously held back by the fact they're just melee weapons, very boring, simple items, designed to be last resort tools in those tense, close-range situations, but they do what they need to do. As regular weapons, they're just okay. So there you have it, the number 16 spot, 6 of the 9 classes melee weapons. Time for us to keep on trucking. I know what I said in the last segment about it being kind of a controversial pick, and a lot of you are not going to be a fan of the placement of this weapon. At number 15, we have the syringe gun.
Ha ha! What a bloodbath!
Hear me out. The syringe gun is notorious for being terrible, and sometimes it is. For example, yesterday when I was trying to get footage on Landfall, if I was going just off that experience, I would put this way further down. It was not fun. However, I have used this weapon a lot in the past, many of times, and while yesterday wasn't the worst game ever, it was worse than average, and typically I have a better experience with the syringe gun. The syringe gun, especially in close quarters, isn't too bad. It does a minimum of 5 damage, which is really nothing, but it has a base of 10 and a max of 12 damage per syringe. While that isn't minigun levels of damage, it isn't terrible either, and can occasionally shred enemies and buildings if they're near you, and especially if they're running at you. That's when I find this weapon to be the absolute best. In addition, while it may not always kill, it does give you some slight range, it's a range tool, that can pressure enemies to potentially not pursue you. This weapon is also surprisingly good at getting people to back off. You have 40 syringes that you could just run through, and while you do go through it quick, it does give you a few seconds of focus fire more than many other weapons. This weapon is very good at getting people off of you. Also, the delay of syringes, because they're so slow, makes it where people will be running at you and then all of a sudden they get hit by a barrage of syringes and they don't know what to do and they just act funny. So, while the syringe gun sucks, compared to a lot of other weapons in slot, it isn't terrible and it would be my 15th overall pick. Let's move on to number 14. Up next, we have the syringe gun, but better. The SMG.
God save the Queen!
The SMG is not underrated per se, but it is often overlooked with just a nod of appreciation and nothing more, but I believe it deserves more than that. While the SMG is a great finisher tool just like the pistol is, it's actually pretty solid as a damage dealer too, especially for a secondary, which of course I'm not really taking into consideration when ranking, but it's worth acknowledging. Having a max damage of 12, base of 8, and a minimum of 4. While that sounds bad, this means that at mid-range you can deal 80 damage per second, and at close range you can deal 120. The SMG has great accuracy, far more than the pistol does, a fast fire rate, and a super fast reload as well. Anyone who's used the SMG, which I'm sure all of you have, unless you managed to avoid it for all this time, or just simply haven't played TF2, and this is like your first introduction to it, which I'm so sorry. Anyway, reload's super quick, which means that you can quickly load up and continue to engage even if you run out of ammo. It's a great suppression tool, and like the syringe gun, will often get people to screw off if they're messing with you, whether it's an arrogant scout or an overzealous demo man or soldier. The SMG can definitely handle its own, though it's down here for a reason. There are much better options as we go up the list, but the SMG should not be slept on, and deserves the number 14 spot for not only being a good secondary, but a good weapon in general. Let's move on. I know some of you were waiting for this one. It's a personal favorite of mine and slept on by so many people. The ones who know that this weapon is good, but it seems to go over so many individuals' heads. That weapon, without a doubt, has to be the revolver.
I did all I could.
The revolver is an interesting one for sure. I'm 90% confident that most spies don't even know that this thing exists. But it does. It's actually there. If you press 1 on your keyboard as spy, you will pull out the revolver and be able to use it in-game. And it's pretty damn good, too. Most actual competent spies, non-frag movie extraordinaire spies, know that this weapon is a solid damage dealer. Not just as a finisher or secondary, but as an actual primary weapon. With an attack interval of 0.5 seconds and a base damage of 40, this means you can only deal about 80 damage at mid-range per second. Though that's just at mid-range. Up close, you can deal 120 damage, which means that you can 3-shot, light classes in 1.5 seconds, and at long range it can deal 42 damage, which means that you can in fact kill light classes and even medics, assuming they don't catch up with regeneration, with just one cylinder of bullets. It's pretty good. While it doesn't really seem like a lot, this little thing packs a punch and does solid burst damage, which is very important for this. Specifically, the thing with the pistol, SMG, syringe gun is they all do solid damage, but it's a tracking weapon, which makes it a lot harder to consistently hit your shots. And I know the spread on the revolver could be kind of interesting, but in general, each shot is meatier and it's going to do more damage, making it a lot better and more consistent of a weapon than something like the SMG, which is why it ranks a bit higher. Though it still doesn't do as much damage as other weapons on this list, which is obviously why it's here. It has a fast reload, solid damage, and decent enough accuracy, so it's hard to pass up and should not be underrated. The revolver has found its home on this list. Let's move on to our next weapon. For the number 12 spot, we have another spy weapon. This time it's what makes Spy the Spy. Well, besides disguising, cloaking, and sapping. So I guess it isn't really what makes Spy the Spy, but it's a big part of his character and design. We have what makes Spy a backstabbing snake, the knife.
Sorry to pop in unannounced.
The knife as a normal melee weapon is terrible, having the same attack speed as the normal melee weapons, and the wrench as well. However, only dealing 5 more damage than the stock bat, which has a faster swing speed. 0.8 second swing speed for only 40 damage. Of course, this is not what makes the stock knife great. The ability to backstab is an amazing mechanic and feels great to pull off, especially if you get to trick your enemy into like a little trick stab. That's even better. It deals 2 times the health of a backstab recipient, as well as dealing a crit for a total of 6 times the health of your opponent, dealing anywhere from 6 to 2700 damage realistically. I believe in manpower you get your health a little higher, there may be some exceptions, but 6 to 2700 is what you will likely see in game. The knife as a melee weapon, when accounting for backstabs, makes this a great weapon and would be insane on any other class. Not that it isn't good for Spy, but just imagine this thing on like Scout or something. The ability to backstab is the only reason why it is this high on the list, as it's a pretty damn good ability. It doesn't rank any higher because, in all honesty, the next level weapons would probably be more consistent and you'd rather have for most situations than the butterfly knife. But it's still great, so it deserves the number 12 spot. Moving along to the number 11 spot. For the number 11 spot, some may argue it is better. Hell, people will probably argue about every placement. But this one definitely could switch with the number 10 spot on any given day. I'm getting ahead of myself. For this slot, we have the all-reliable shotgun.
How'd that plan turn out for you, dummy?
This is where we start to get into the legitimately good weapons, like good all the time. The shotgun is used by 4 of the 9 classes, and it's good on all of them. Yes, all of them, even heavy. I've spoken about that in the past, and I won't get into it now. The shotgun is a workhorse weapon of TF2, dealing 6 base damage per pellet with 10 pellets. Damage ranging from 3, if you hit them at really far range with just a single pellet, up to 90 damage, which is a pretty meaty shot, being able to 2-shot light classes all the way up to Demo and Pyro, 3-shotting soldiers, and I believe it takes 4 shots for a heavy. Yep, 4 shots for a heavy. The shotgun is just such a great weapon to use. It deals solid burst damage. It isn't a sniper rifle, but it isn't useless outside of breathing range like some shotguns are in other games. It hits hard, it feels good to use, it's okay at mid-range, and then it falls off at longer ranges, which is why I prefer some weapons over this one, but it still feels really good. It does reload a bit slowly, especially on Soldier and Pyro, who have a slightly slower initial reload speed, but that doesn't take too much away from it. There isn't much I can really say on this weapon that hasn't been said by others countless times before. It is a great secondary on Soldier, Pyro, and Heavy, and it's a solid primary weapon on Engineer and Fat Scout. It would be a weapon I wouldn't mind bringing into battle, as it does its job very well. However, it is rendered redundant by another weapon on this list. Most of you already know what weapon I'm referring to, but we'll get there when we get there. The shotgun has earned its placement on this list in the number 11 spot. Great job, love the shotgun. Cracking into the top 10, next up we have one of my least favorite weapons by design, but I can't deny the fact that it's still quite effective and does its job pretty well. That weapon is the flamethrower. The flamethrower has a lot of little things that make it good. The damage is really funky on the flamethrower, with the damage being based off the lifetime of the particles, and actually has fall off, which some of you may not have known. I'm sure most of you do, but yeah, the flamethrower actually does have fall off. At max ramp up, the damage per second is around 175 to 180 or so. It's kind of hard to tell for sure, but it's in between that range somewhere. Which, while it isn't good, it isn't the worst, and since you don't really have to aim with this thing, you can kind of get close to max damage pretty consistently. It also blinds the enemy due to not being transparent. It causes afterburn at 4 damage per tick for a max of 80 if you keep the direct flames on your enemy for long enough. Originally, the flamethrower would light enemies on fire for 10 seconds, except for the short time where it was reduced to 6, but was reverted soon after. I'll bring that up just in case. At 3 damage per tick regardless of how long an enemy was in your flames, but now it's 4 damage and it ranges from 4 to 10 seconds. That's an info dump that likely isn't needed, but I always like adding a bit of trivia to these videos, as I'm sure a good chunk of you didn't know about this information. Maybe some of you did, probably a lot of you did, especially if you're an OG, but maybe some of you new guys and gals may not have done that, so thought I'd add that in for fun. Back to talking about the basics of the flamethrower. The afterburn can be effective for finishing off low health enemies. There's also air blast, which can push enemies around, extinguish teammates, and reflect projectiles that deal a mini crit if they or the splash radius hits an enemy, with the exception of sticky bombs. The flamethrower isn't the best damage dealing tool, but it has good utility and a lot of the little functions it has. While it makes it really annoying sometimes, it makes it an overall good pick to bring in the battle. The thing that holds it back is that with a decent amount of skill, a lot of weapons can outdamage it, and also the fact that this thing has pretty pitiful range compared to a lot of other weapons. I mean, it's a flamethrower. I'm sure you all expected that. I think the flamethrower is just a bit easier to use most of the time, with its ability to air blast as being also a good addition. There you have it, one of my least favorite weapon designs, but it's still good nonetheless. I can't deny that. Let's finally move on to the single digit placements. For this spot, we have the shotgun, but better. Literally just better. The scattergun.
You knuckleheads ain't even worth the effort.
Scattergun and shotgun are nearly identical, with two main differences. The reload speed is technically slightly faster, just a tiny bit, but not really much to put it much above the regular shotgun. The major difference that separates these weapons, and puts it 2 slots up, is the damage ramp up. Rather than the standard 150% damage ramp up, it has 175% damage ramp up, which allows this to do far more damage than the stock shotgun is capable of. Because of this damage, I think it's not just better than the shotgun, that is objective, it's even beating out the flamethrower for one major reason: the damage thresholds. So the stock shotgun can deal a maximum of 90 damage. This thing can do a max of 104 damage, which means that you can now 1-tap Big Earner Spies, 2-shot Soldiers, and 3-shot Heavies. And it also makes it a little bit easier to 2-shot Pyros and Demo Men as well. You know, dealing more damage is nice, and it makes it better in general. It's for this damage that it's put so high on this list, but at the same time it is still affected hard by fall off due to it being a shotgun. So I think it goes up 2 ranks compared to the stock shotgun, just edging out the flamethrower, as I'd rather have the scattergun, but it's not leagues ahead. It's 14 more damage, but that does make a difference. Either way, really good. Earn the number 9 spot. Moving along. Let's go. For the number 8 winner, we have one that some may disagree with, but due to some other weapons on this list, it takes the number 8 spot. That weapon is the grenade launcher.
Kablooey!
Now listen, I know some of you are throwing tomatoes at your monitors. Stop doing that. I will not be reimbursing you. I will not buy you a new monitor. Just clean that off and listen. Let's start off with the good. This is an explosive weapon that is good for ground control. And it also does pretty solid damage. It can hit multiple people with a single pill. which is nice. This weapon does 100 damage, up to 115 if you're a maniac that plays on community servers with random damage spread. Do any servers still run random damage spread anymore? Like, that's still something you can enable. I don't know if you guys know that. You can, like, still turn that on in your own servers, but it's off by default. Whatever. I don't know. 100 damage is solid, that being on a direct hit. And this is what it will be in most servers, as most servers do not run random damage spread. So, 100. Being able to two-shot most classes, taking 3 on the big boy himself, aka Misha, or heavy weapons guy. The grenades have no fall-off, so as long as you connect, you'll get that crisp 100 damage. Doesn't matter if it hits him in the head or it hits him in the foot. As long as that grenade comes out the barrel and it hits the player without ever hitting the ground, wall, or whatever, it will deal the full 100 damage. It's also a grenade. So if players within 146 hammer units of the blast radius, which was once 159, little fun fact for you guys, but it was reduced to 146, they'll take splash damage. If you miss the pipe, no fear, it will roll around on the ground for 2 seconds before exploding, dealing some damage to enemies in the nearby radius. The launcher also has a fast fire rate and can dish out some hurt pretty quickly. That's a lot of positives, however it is affected by one major negative: its limited range. While it does deal decent damage and actually is one of the best mid-range weapons, it's limited by the fact that it's a projectile with an arc. It also requires a decent amount of skill to use. I mean, you could spam all 4 grenades down the choke point and hope. Maybe you'll get a couple lucky kills every once in a while on a scout or medic or spy with low HP who runs over it or something. But in general, using this thing effectively does require at least some sort of timing and raw aiming skill in order to make use of this thing and get consistent damage out of it. If you can aim really well, this thing is really strong. However, if you are more like me, where it's on and off, it can be troublesome. With all that said, it is still a very good weapon, and that can't be understated. Here is the number 8 spot. Let's move on to the number 7 spot. To finish off the melees on this list, we have the wrench.
Start praying, boy.
Now, I am lumping in the PDA as part of the wrench's function. Some may not like that I'm doing this. They're technically different weapons, though they are so intertwined with one another that I decided to lump them together. Plus, if I was to separate them, then I would have to talk about the destruction PDA as well, and I'm just not feeling it. So, guess what? They're getting lumped together. Sorry. The wrench has 3 main functions: kill, upgrade, repair, and the secret 4th function, random critting spies. The random crit chance is actually higher on this weapon, since, more damage over a short amount of time increases the crit chance, and the wrench crit chance is tied to the sentry gun as well. So see, they are quite intertwined, but, the sentry gun can dish out a pretty good amount of damage, so the crit chance ends up being a lot higher. What I can say about the actual melee portion of the wrench is that it's the same as every other normal melee besides the knife and bat, besides having a higher crit chance like the bone saw due to how the crit chance scales. But if we're just looking at the melee itself, it's just the stock melee. It just has a couple other functions. The wrench can be used to upgrade buildings, increasing the health, the firepower for the sentry specifically, healing, metal, ammo, speed, and amount for the dispenser, and recharging speed for the teleporter. The wrench now can also repair the building for 100 health per swing at the cost of 33 metal. Little fun fact I thought I'd end here: it used to be 5 HP per metal, but now it is only 3. So it used to only cost 20 metal. Though overall the wrench is better. Once again, sorry I like to throw stuff in there like this. It's just kind of interesting. This got all changed around the gunmetal update. In addition, while a building is building or being redeployed below level 1, you can keep hitting it with your wrench to increase the speed in which it builds by up to 2.5 times, which significantly lowers the time of construction or redeployment. With the wrench, you can do this not on just your buildings, but also friendly buildings as well. So if your friendly engineer is redeploying or building a building, all these functions work on theirs as well. For the buildings themselves, most of you know what they do. They can help lock down an area a bit with the help of a sentry gun, heal up your team or give them ammo with the help of the dispenser, and finally bring your team to the front lines quicker with the help of a teleporter, costing 130, 150 respectively, or 25 for the teleporter if you're using the Eureka effect. Another little fun fact, the teleporter used to cost $125 and was the second most expensive building. It's actually a great choice that they lowered that. The only thing that holds it back is the fact that it's just an okay killing tool. And the building can be cheesed or destroyed easily without a god spot placement sometimes. It's still really good, but there's other choices that I'd rather have over it. Definitely the best melee to bring 99% of the time, but there are some more weapons that are a little more consistent. Let's move on. For the number 6 spot, we have our last tool, a non-weapon weapon. That being the Inviswatch.
This will be the last time you see me.
This one was really difficult to rank due to it technically not being able to kill, so I had to think about this one. Just a little bit. If it was based solely off the idea that this was the single only weapon that I could bring into the fight, then it would be number 18 right behind the Disguise Kit, which would be right behind the Sapper. Though, with everything taken into account, assuming maybe I had some sort of loadout and I could have 3 or 4 weapons, the Inviswatch would be pretty damn good, and I couldn't put it at the number 18 spot. It's too good. The ability to sneak behind enemy lines undetected is really powerful. And if you're allowed to bring in anything else, any weapon alongside it, you're completely set. Pretty much anything will be good with the Inviswatch equipped. Hell, even the Sapper would be pretty good. I guess the only thing that wouldn't be is the Disguise Kit, because, I mean, for Spy it is, but for anybody else it really isn't. You get 10 seconds of invisibility, which can be extended through ammo packs, which some may not know wasn't always a feature, but it is now, and it's pretty good. So, not much more I could say. The Invisibility Watch has a lot of potential and deserves the spot that it has, all things considered. I can go on and on about other stupid little mechanics. You know, you get a 20% damage resistance while cloaked, debuff times are cut in half while cloaked. There's a lot of little cool things that this thing has. So, overall, Inviswatch is pretty good. I really can't say much else. Let's move into the top 5. First up in the top 5, we have everyone's favorite, the rocket launcher.
This is my world. You are not welcome in my world.
The rocket launcher is one of the easiest and most intuitive weapons to use. You shoot rockets, it explodes, and it deals damage in a radius. The rocket launcher is pretty good with a base damage of 90, but scales up to 112 at point blank range. At max fall off, it can still deal 48 damage on a direct hit, or 24 with splash, but hey, any damage is good. The rocket launcher, as of 2009, has an explosion radius of 146 hammer units, or the same as Demoman's launchers post-2014, which is pretty solid. I mean, that's not too bad. It also offers great mobility with rocket jumping, which can allow you to make single jumps up on higher platforms, or if you're very skilled, wall jump, pogo, slide up some surfaces, and sink. If you don't know what sinking is, it's basically where you're in the air, you shoot a rocket down, you fall down, and then you wait for the rocket to hit the ground at the same time as you do, then you jump and shoot another rocket. It's crazy. So it's a hard skill to learn, and if you can do it, well done. There's really no downsides as a rocket launcher. The only reason it is this low is because there are better options that you'd probably want to take into a fight more than this one. While it is the easiest to dish out high amounts of damage to a large number of people, it's held back by the smaller ammo count and the self-damaging factor that might not always be intentional. Sure, that's part of how you rocket jump, but sometimes if you're in close proximity, you might take yourself out too. Nothing more I can say. Soldier is one of the most popular classes to play in main, so you probably use the rocket launcher extensively, and you just know how good it is in general, peeking corners, shooting down sentries, whatever it may be. It works. It's very good. Moving down to number 4. Oh man, here we have one of the most hated default weapons in TF2. No, not that one, not the most hated. We'll get to that, don't worry. The one I'm talking about right now is the Sticky Bomb Launcher.
Couldn't you see the bloody bombs?
Well, it's classified as being Demoman's secondary. It has been rightly referred to as Demoman's second primary, because it is. Shooting bombs that stick to surfaces apart from players in some map geometry, the bombs can be detonated after 0.7 seconds. They have a 15% blast radius penalty for the first 2 seconds of their lifetime, scaling up over the course of 2 seconds, or instantly regaining the full 146 hammer units after touching the world, whether it be a wall, ceiling, or the ground. You have 8 bombs in the little drum mag thing, and you can place 8 of those bombs onto the ground or onto any surface to detonate at whatever time you want, as long as they have been spawned for at least 0.7 seconds. Otherwise, they will not arm. Trying to put down more will obviously start to blow up the oldest sticky bomb. This weapon is known to be the bane of people's existence due to how versatile it is. It can be defensive, laying traps about to blow up enemies who walk through doorways or over certain geometry or whatever it might be, or you can hide it in stuff. However, it can also be used as an offensive weapon, dishing out high amounts of damage to enemies in a medium-sized radius. People hate it because it does solid damage, up to 140 assuming you're touching the enemy, but consistently 70 to 90 damage per bomb at mid-range and 20 to 40 at long range. If your traps have been set for at least 5 seconds, the damage will also be higher, as it no longer takes the player who is using its distance into account when doing the damage calculation, so it's just how close they are to the bombs rather than how close the demo man is to the bombs. Pyros can also not turn the sticky bombs, so they can be deflected but not turned into the pyro team's sticky bomb. It can be easily spammed and absolutely obliterate teams, especially if you have a crit screen medic jammed up your ass. The sticky bomb launcher is ridiculous and is honestly better than Demoman's actual primary, the pipe bomb launcher, most of the time. You'll see high-level competitive players using the sticky bomb launcher as a lot more than they use the pipe bomb launcher, and using the pipe bomb launcher as a backup instead, because the sticky bomb launcher is just so good. It can be a great mobility tool, flinging yourself across the map with 2 stickies, or chaining 2, even 3 stickies in order to change direction mid-flight. It's super cool looking. The sticky bomb launcher is held back from greatness, it's still pretty great, due to 2 major faults. The first one is range. Now, the thing is this has pitiful range by default, but you can charge up the sticky bomb launcher in order to launch the bomb further. But the base sticky bomb range is, like I said, not great, and it takes a long time to charge up all the way, 5 seconds to be exact. So yes, you can kind of snipe people with it, but it's 5 seconds per bomb, and you're going to be doing like 24 to 40 damage. It's not really good. But I guess it's good to pester people. There's that. Plus it will have some slight spread, which isn't terrible, but it can throw you off a bit. The second major issue is the reload. You're powerful as hell when fully loaded, but it takes almost 6 seconds to refill all 8 bombs once you're out. Which, while it seems quick, in a game like TF2 it could be a huge cost. Better hope you have ammo in reserve on your pipe bomb launcher if you run out of sticky bombs in your sticky bomb launcher. And you better not be running the boots with it, otherwise you are really screwed. Overall, it's a great defensive and offensive tool, great trap setter, point spammer, crowd controller, and enemy team annoyer. Let's get into the top 3 who will take home bronze. Taking home the bronze medal tonight has to be the Medigun.
We did it, camarade!
The Medigun is not a killing tool, however it is one of the strongest weapons in the game. Being able to heal your teammates is a huge deal, being one of the few items in the game that can actually do this. There's some that can do this indirectly, such as the Candy Cane, Conch when active, and Mad Milk. However, there's only a few items that do this directly, those being the lunchbox item Heavy has, which I mean, he's not always going to have them, and plus the Delocus Bar and Second Banana are only small health packs. You know, it's not the best healing source, but technically it is. It's a healing source. The dispenser, which is a little bit better, the Crusader's Crossbow for burst healing, and of course the Medigun. The Medigun being the best for quick and consistent healing. It heals at 24 health per second or 72 health per second with crit heals, which begin happening when your teammate's been out of combat for at least 10 seconds and reaches its max of 72 health per second at the 15-second mark. It basically works as an upward trend. Starting at 10 seconds, it will begin to go up, and if your heal patient has been out of combat for 15 seconds, then it will be 72 health per second. In addition, every 30 to 60 seconds or so, assuming you're being a dedicated healer, you can get a full 8 seconds of invulnerability. Sure, you all knew that, but hey, that is just stupid, strong, and is a surefire way to break through stalemates most of the time. While it does cause you to lose Ubercharge quicker, you can also flash your teammates, which gives them a short period of invulnerability. Did you guys know that this wasn't a thing at one time? Yeah, in the early days of TF2, flashing your teammates real quick would not increase the rate in which you drain Ubercharge. Yeah, that sounds absolutely awful. However, now, while it does increase the drain rate, it can still be effective for blitz-like pushes or to save a teammate real quick. It also has the ability to match the speed of your heal target, which really only comes into play with scouts, but there are some other examples, such as Powerjack Pyros, souped-up Demo Knights / Hybrid Knights who are using the Eyelander, or soldiers at low health using the escape plan. This wasn't always the case, but as of Meet Your Match 2016, this went from being a quick fix exclusive ability to being on all metiguns, which was one of the few good changes that actually came out of Meet Your Match. Other than that, it kind of sucked. The medic, and more so the medigun, is super strong. The only reason it doesn't rank higher is because it technically can't kill, only assisting and killing, though it does a pretty good job at that. And with that being said, it still ranks so high just because of how important it is to TF2. The medigun, without the medigun, chaos runs rampant and engineer nests become impenetrable forces. So the medigun is an important mainstay of TF2 and the TF2 weapon roster. Medigun good, Dr. Medic approves. Let's see who will be taking home the silver tonight. For silver, we have probably the most hated weapon in Team Fortress 2. Yes, we're going to finally talk about it. The sniper rifle.
I'm gonna paint one right between your eyes, you panther!
The sniper rifle was a tough one for me. I'm personally just kind of okay with the sniper rifle, and so are a lot of other snipers. However, the rifle is potentially the second strongest weapon in the game, and the best long-range weapon in the game, no doubt, in the hands of somebody who plays a lot of sniper or just has good aim in general. The sniper rifle is the only stock weapon besides the grenade launcher and I guess melee weapons that have no form of damage fall-off, but unlike the grenade launcher specifically, it's hit scan. So as soon as you click, it deals damage, and it can do this at pretty much any range. The sniper rifle does 50 base damage when unscoped, or scoped with very little charge, and it can be charged up to do 3 times the damage up to 150. Getting a headshot will automatically force a critical hit. I'm sure most of you knew this, but just in case, I thought I would add that on. Thank whatever god you believe in, or if you don't, thank the game devs that this thing cannot random crit. My god, that would be horrible. The sniper rifle is so strong because this thing can headshot within 0.2 seconds of scoping in and immediately kill 5 out of the 9 classes, taking only a bit more charge to take out the other 4, even if they're completely overhealed. This includes heavy, unless they're using some sort of resistance item. For example, the Natasha or Brass Beast, when they're fully revved up with full overheal or something like that, sure, they can tank it. There are some items that will allow you to do that. Or if you're a spy with the Dead Ringer, you can tank it quick scope. However, in general, all the classes at their base can be just deleted by the sniper from anywhere. It's super strong. And the sniper, like I said, can do this from across the map. Sniper is so hated, or rather the sniper rifle is so hated, because he can do this from across the map, behind his teammates, and you may not even know you're fighting him until it's too late. This isn't a video to slander sniper, but it's true, and you all know it. The sniper rifle has plenty of ammo, reloads rather quickly, and is a perfectly accurate hit scan with no damage fall off. The sniper is just extremely powerful in the hands of a competent player, and still rather strong in the hands of anyone who can click on people, even if it's not a headshot. I won't say it doesn't take skill, because it does, but any sniper that can do that somewhat consistently will be a constant threat to your team, and most of the time you won't even see him. That's why the sniper rifle has earned the number 2 spot on this list. Some may believe that he deserves the number 1, and there are definitely instances where I'm like, God, this sniper sucks. Not literally, but figuratively, like, man, he's just completely destroying my team, and if he was just removed and vote kicked, I'd be a lot happier. Whereas with a lot of other weapons, it's not really the case. However, I think there's just one weapon that has it beat out. It can demolish not just a single enemy from close to mid-range with the highest DPS in the game, but also deal solid damage at mid to long range, mow through crowds, and cause chaos in the hands of a good player. I've definitely met some infuriating players who can use this weapon, particularly just shut down the entire server. Maybe not the same way as a sniper rifle, but they still can, especially if they have another class who's following him. Hint, hint. Only one weapon left. If you've been paying attention, you know which one it is. Let's talk about it.
Oh! Run! Run!
Run! I'm coming for you!
So this is what I decided to go for my number one pick. The winner of it all, the gold medalist. The minigun is no doubt the absolute strongest weapon in the game. Maybe not from across the map, but this thing is ridiculous at close and even mid-range. The minigun, for those who don't know the specifics, is kind of unique. It fires single ammo, there's a specific reason I'm using that verbiage, every 0.105 seconds, or 105 milliseconds. So it fires just under 10 ammo per second. However, the minigun does not fire a single round, instead firing 4 at once, which all deal a base of 9 damage. With full ramp up, this means that if all 4 bullets hit, you can deal 54 damage in an instant. Wow. The minigun, as of 2010, now takes 87 milliseconds to rev up and will slow down your movement speed to just 110 hammer units from your base 230. It used to be 80 hammer units. Yeah, kind of interesting, but they raised the amount, the speed in which you could move in 2010. It also has a 1 second damage and accuracy ramp up that reaches max after being spun up for at least 1 second. Staying revved up will allow you to keep the standard damage. Unrevving will remove it. So there you go, the basics of the minigun. The minigun is stupid strong, and we all knew this. It has the highest potential DPS in the game, DPS being damage per second. Don't know why I explained that, but just in case you don't know. Besides the Brass Beast and Huolong Heater, which are also miniguns. This is one of the few tracking weapons in the game, so instead of dealing high burst damage, even though it kind of does, not gonna lie, it can continue to dish out hurt for seconds on end. And you can just go through all 200 rounds. There is no magazine on this thing. You don't have to reload. While a soldier or demo man can also obliterate teams, the Heavy and his minigun are a specialist at this. It can be great for single targets that you catch off guard, or even groups of enemies, if they are looking away especially. If you catch someone off guard with this thing, oh man, it doesn't matter if there's 3 of them, they're gone. Right back to the respawn. While yes, it does require a spin-up time, it slows you down, doesn't allow you to jump, and also has a rev down time before you can swap your weapons, which does suck sometimes. It is still really strong, and some of the issues can be circumvented by jump revving, which is just self-explanatory. You jump and you rev while you're in the air, so when you land, you're fully revved up. This is especially useful for when you're jumping around corners that you're sure have enemies behind it. The minigun is really strong, and I believe it is an easy number 1 pick as the strongest stock weapon in the game, and would likely be my choice to bring into battle 9 out of 10 times. There are some other weapons that kind of have other niches, like the sticky bomb launcher would be great for like defense, especially, or if I want something that's a little versatile. The rocket launcher for hitting, the splash hits, and the sniper rifle for those long range shots. But the minigun overall is just it's great. It's the cream of the crop. It's the best there is. I don't know about you guys, but I'm always ripping through enemies with this thing. Minigun, very good. That will be all for today. I hope you guys liked the video. Tell me what you think by leaving a comment down below. Did you agree? Did you disagree? Leave some of your opinions down below, or if you have some free time and you don't know what to do, write your own list. There are some on here that I was even kind of struggling with their placement on. So, let me know what you think. Either way, have a good rest of your morning, day, or night, and if it's midnight, get to bed, dude. Alright, I'll catch you later.